While technology is endlessly fascinating, it's also sort of a beach. Because while it continues to improve, you get confused as to what to buy and when to buy it. Ever-present obsolescence is the reason I'm making this video and why you're here. Did you buy a PS4 Slim in late 2018? I've concluded that the PS4 Slim isn't that photogenic. Videos and especially photography do not do this console justice. I should have known that when I first saw the announcement of this in 2016, and I was like, really? Trust me when I say that while aesthetics are subjective, this thing is quite handsome in person. It looks pretty boring initially, both due to it being all matte black and it being boring compared to its arch-rival counterpart, the Xbox One S. Nonetheless, on its own, you really look at it and you start to think it's somewhat of a marvel. I mean, the original PlayStation 4 was already pretty slim, considering the power at the time. This is the same exact specs, and it's even slimmer. So, Sony always impresses with their slim version PlayStations, and this ain't an exception. At about 1.5 inches thick, and less than a foot in both width and depth, it's a pretty machine. Plastic has just the right amount of roughness in its texture to feel premium. I also really dig this parallelogram stance that all the PlayStation 4s feature. Also, the fact that this thing doesn't look like a PlayStation sandwich, unlike the PlayStation 4 Pro. The design is a win for me. When it comes to the things you can stick inside it. In the front, you got this slot-loading disc tray, which I really like that consoles still have this. You know, you just put a disc and it just sucks it in. You know, I like it. It's pretty modern. And 2 USB 3.1 ports, you know, to charge your controller and whatever else we want to put in there. You probably put your phone in there if you really want to. You know, it's just useful. On the back, you got the power port, an auxiliary port for the PlayStation VR and camera. That's what that's for, completely proprietary. Your HDMI 1.4 port, which supports up to 4K at 24 frames per second. Now, I'm talking about the port, and I'm talking about the PlayStation 4 Slim, because the PlayStation 4 Slim can't do 4K, but we'll talk about that later. And gigabit Ethernet, which, dude, if you could plug this in with an Ethernet cord instead of using Wi-Fi, do it. This is where I'm going to start comparing the PlayStation 4 Slim with the PlayStation 4 Pro. To super simplify this, basically you're getting more CPU and GPU power, more computer and graphics power, and a gigabyte more of RAM. I've heard the gigabyte more of RAM is really just to have more memory dedicated to the background stuff, like if you're also having Netflix or YouTube in the background while you're playing a game and then switching off between applications. The PlayStation 4 Slim, or OG PlayStation 4, can do up to 1080p resolution at 30 or 60 frames per second, depending upon the game. The PlayStation 4 Pro, on the other hand, is capable of 4K resolution, sort of, and sometimes, but we'll get to that. And it also does 30 and 60 frames per second, depending upon the game. Both are capable of high dynamic range, HDR, which essentially gives much wider shades of colors and brightness. This is highly dependent upon not just how the HDR is implemented in the game, but also on the quality of your HDR on your TV. But that's a whole other topic. Since I don't own a PlayStation 4 Pro, and this video is in 1080p, I'm not going to actually show you some PS4 Pro content. You're really only going to be able to see it for what it is at 4K resolution if you're watching that footage on a 4K television. So if you want to watch a PS4 Pro for what it actually can do, watch some PS4 Pro YouTube content on a 4K television. But what I am showing you right now is some 1080p content of base PlayStation 4 hardware. Now, while this can't do 4K, it still impresses. For a console that came out in 2013, this thing is still quite beautiful for its exclusives especially. And if you don't compare it to PCs, because obviously that's a whole different league. I mean, look at the detail on this exclusive God of War. I mean, come on, the lighting, the colors, just the level of detail is amazing. And again, this is hardware 5 years ago. It really shows you that optimization, creating a game specifically for known hardware, can do wonders. Now, in terms of reliability and overall my experience, what would I say about my PS4 Slim? Well, I bought it in December of 2016, so it's been just about 2 years now. It's been very reliable for me. I mean, it never gets too hot. I think it only crashed on me maybe twice. Both of them, thank God, were not during, very critical sessions, but most modern games autosave at pretty good moments anyway. It's also pretty damn quiet. I mean, if you're just like watching Netflix or YouTube, you can't hear it. And even when I'm playing demanding titles like God of War, the sound of my speakers definitely overpower the sound of the fan. It very rarely sounds like the PS4 Slim is struggling. And speaking from someone who used to own an OG PS4, my little brothers now have to, deal with that. This is much quieter than the OG PS4. And much quieter than the PS4 Pro. And the build quality, I say, is pretty damn good. Aside for, there are a couple squeaky panels on mine specifically, but I would imagine that's from unit to unit. Me buying it during Black Friday season, there's, just pumping these bitches out. So it's a little squeaky, but I still love how it feels. Alrighty. So if you really compare apples to apples, the PS4 Slim is the way to go in my opinion. Unless you're pooping at Skrilla or dropping $400 on a console today doesn't mess with any of your financial priorities, go for the Slim, dude. I mean, come on. At the time of this publishing, for Black Friday, you can get a PS4 Slim that comes with the brand new Marvel Spider-Man game for $199. Are you serious? That is a crazy deal. The PS4 Pro still goes for $399 today. And yeah, I saw that there's a Red Dead 2 bundle that comes with it, so I mean, for both bundles, you're saving $60. But I mean, come on, you're saving $200. It's twice the price. And yes, both come with a good game, but let's put out this other factor. The PlayStation 5's probably going to come out within the next 2.5, max 3 years. So there's already going to be a brand new PlayStation console that can definitely do native 4K. Oh yeah, the PS4 Pro uses a technique called checkerboard rendering, and just to clarify, this depends upon the game you're playing and how they choose to use the PS4 Pro's hardware to create a 4K resolution image. But a very popular one is called checkerboard rendering. What checkerboard rendering does is to simplify it, creates a 2160p resolution image with only having to push forth the number of pixels that is twice the resolution of 1080p rather than 4 times, which is what 4K is. This means that the PS4 Pro doesn't have to work nearly as hard to present you with a 4K image. That being said, this technique isn't true native 4K. Yes, the PS4 Pro, for most if not all of its brand new games, can't do native 4K. Now let me also say that there is a very high chance you won't be able to tell the difference. Yes, there is some level of detail that is taken out of the 4K native that would be happening with using checkerboard rendering. But nonetheless, it's still going to be a very significant change in resolution from 1080p. But nonetheless, if you for some reason haven't jumped on the PlayStation bandwagon, just do it, man. This generation's only going to go on for a couple more years, and there is already good console exclusives for the PlayStation ecosystem. God of War, Marvel Spider-Man, Persona 5, one of my favorites, Horizon Zero Dawn. I can go on. All these games are amazing Game of the Year contenders, and they all feature damn good graphics for what they're trying to do. And yeah, that's my conclusion. Go for the PS4 Slim, unless you got hella Skrilla. Thanks for watching my video, guys. I really appreciate it. This is Tech Reason here. And like and subscribe. Comment. All that stuff helps. Now go ahead with your bad self and buy that PS4 Slim, boy.